Hello and welcome to 11FS Spotlight. I'm Benjamin Ensor. In this weekly show, we shine a spotlight on the best and brightest in the tech and financial services industries to try and understand what gets them going, growing, and what they think the future will look like. On today's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by two guests. I'm delighted to be joined by Josh Francia, who is Chief Growth Officer at Blueshift, and Chris Kachel, Senior Director, Customer Experience at LendingTree. How are you doing today, Josh?
I'm doing great. How are you, Ben?
Very well indeed, thank you. Welcome. And how about you, Chris?
Oh, doing great. Fall is a great time in North Carolina, so just been enjoying some of this nice cool down weather, so doing well.
The colours on the trees in the Northern Hemisphere turn a lovely colour, don't they?
They do.
I hear that what I'd call the autumn, what you'd call the fall in New England is always lovely, but it sounds like it's lovely in North Carolina too.
Yeah.
Okay, so on today's show, we're going to talk about your careers, Chris and Josh, and take a deep dive into how you go about sort of scaling up and growing your customer base. So let's start off. Can you give us a 1-minute elevator pitch for LendingTree? For people listening to this who don't know LendingTree, can you give us a quick elevator pitch on what LendingTree is and what business it does?
Yeah. And thanks again, Ben, for having me on. So the way we think about LendingTree is really, other than deaths in the family, divorce, job loss, financial stress is one of the biggest stressors that Americans face every day. So our purpose as a company is really just to make financial experiences easier, better, and ultimately result in saving people money so that they can improve their financial lives and hopefully improve their overall quality of life as they have less of that financial stress. And there's really two main things that we do for customers. The first is offering free education, financial tools, things like credit tracking your credit score, budgeting your monthly expenses, monthly cash flow, providing investment tools, fraud monitoring, just all these things to kind of get better educated and understand your financial health. And then the second, and really the bigger thing that we interact with customers on, is helping them save money when they either get or refinance a loan. And the opportunity there that we always stay focused on is that the average American consumer has 8 different loans at any given time. So they could be credit cards, mortgages, student loans, auto loans, all those sorts of things.
8 simultaneously or 8 over their lifetimes?
Eight at any one time if you count credit cards as a loan type, which a lot of Americans do carry credit card debt. So we view that as an ongoing type of loan. And most people can save significant amounts of money on the loans that they currently have. The biggest one is obviously your mortgage. And the data that we use says that the average customer or average homeowner can save $44,000 over the course of a 30-year mortgage, just because there's rates out there that they didn't initially access. So there's a huge opportunity for customers to be paying less for the loans that they have. And we view that as an important mission in not only improving their financial lives by helping them save that money, but also just helping them lead a better overall quality of life because they have less of that financial stress that they're carrying.
Excellent. Thank you. Josh, could I get the same from you, an elevator pitch on Blueshift, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Blueshift its the whole purpose is to help companies and brands personalize omni-channel engagement. And so that's that one-to-one level of personalization across all customer touch points that every brand kind of dreams about, wants to do, but generally struggles to do it because of a lack of technology that allows them to do this and connect all those pieces. So Blueshift our platform is a smart hub CDP or customer data platform. And so what that means is it's built on a foundational customer data platform that unifies all of your first-party data. And today, the world of first-party data is getting the spotlight because of a lot of different things that are happening, but so many brands still struggle to really access their first-party data in any meaningful way, especially from a business user perspective. Product and marketing and customer experience folks, they don't really know how to access their first-party data. And then once you can access it, it doesn't really do your customers much good unless you activate it. And so then Blueshift also allows you to activate that through an omni-channel journey builder, connecting every channel you can think of, from maybe the own channels of email and website and direct mail and push notifications, all the way to external channels like paid media, OTT, customer service, and more. And then the smart aspect is we add layers of AI throughout, helping you identify, who's most likely to, in Chris's example, be ready to refi for a certain loan. When's the best time to talk to somebody? Where's the best channel to talk to them? Where are they going to be most responsive? And then what kind of offer, in Chris's example, LendingTree can provide a lot of different loan offers to you from a lot of different partners. Which one's going to resonate most with you? So what type of content or recommendations should we provide to customers? And that has helped brands really just dramatically change their trajectory and grow revenue and grow retention to X factors of significance for their company. So that's what we do as a nutshell. And we work with brands like LendingTree and others and help them really scale that one-to-one personalized engagement.
Got it. And just for viewers, first-party data is data that companies collect themselves directly from their customers, and of course, you sort of assume that, of course, the company knows all that data, and of course, in practice, it's all buried in this and that legacy systems. Sometimes, I'm sure, exactly. Not at LendingTree, as we're going to come on to. But so what I want to get onto is how the two of you work together, how your two companies work together, and perhaps we can do that by just sort of quickly exploring your two roles. So, Chris, could you just tell us a little bit about your role at LendingTree, and then we'll come on to your role, Josh, and then how the two of you work together.
Yeah, sure. I've had a couple of different roles at LendingTree. Right now, my role is, as you mentioned, Senior Director of Customer Experience, and really what that means at LendingTree is this is a role based in our product organization that is responsible for understanding our customers and what they need as well as possible. So we interview customers, we survey customers, we come up with ways to really serve those customers' needs by building experiences and then measuring to see, did that actually accomplish what the customer wanted to accomplish? And so we're very close to our customer data, our customer voice, to our engineering teams to actually build those things that matter for customers.
And how did that lead you to Josh? And Josh, what's your role? So maybe, Chris, you can introduce us how you got to Josh, and Josh, maybe you can sort of tell us about your role.
Yeah, so we work really closely with Blueshift because of a lot of the things that Josh just mentioned. Like, we have tons of first-party data, and we need to be able to activate it through a partnership with a platform like Blueshift, and so we push our first-party data into Blueshift, and then we do all those things like send email, send SMS, send push notifications, send marketing messages through all of the digital marketing platforms that most companies use, and we've just had a lot of success and a lot of great partnership working with Josh and the team at Blueshift to help us just get better at delivering those right messages at the right time to our customer base.
So, Josh, how about you? What is? Tell us a little bit more about your role at Blueshift, please.
Yeah, so I'm Chief Growth Officer, as you mentioned, and I kind of joke that Chief Growth Officer is an up-and-coming title that takes a lot of different shapes and sizes. The way we look at it at Blueshift, it's kind of like CMO plus. Everyone likes the plus nowadays. You have a lot of pluses in the world. So it's like CMO plus. And what that means is, responsible for the traditional marketing functions, right? So go-to-market, product marketing, demand gen, and so on. But then we also tack in a few other things like solution consulting is under the growth team, which helps in the technical side of sales. Partnerships is under the growth team. BDR and business development is underneath the growth team. And then just overall strategy. How do we figure out, who do we target? Who's our target market? Like, which customers should we go after? How do we make sure that we present the right use cases to those customers that resonates with what they're thinking and what they're struggling with? And then how do we actually show them the art of the possible? A lot of times what we've noticed, LendingTree is a good example of a company that has kind of been pretty mature in its digital adoption, right? LendingTree was born online, 25 so years ago. And one of the first, .com companies, in that bust and the big boom of the .com companies, and it made it through the bust. And so it has the digital maturity of a company like LendingTree is far more advanced than other companies. And so a lot of times when we talk to LendingTree, it's a very easy discussion and conversation. Other companies, they need to really be guided on, hey, this is what you need to think about with your first party data. Here's some use cases you can think about, because they all have the same desire, is to grow revenue, is to grow retention, but they don't always know the path to do that. And so part of my job and my responsibility with my team is to make sure that we create that path and we guide them along that path. And then we check with them, hey, does this resonate with you? Is this something that you guys are thinking about? Is this going to help your business? And a lot of times they've thought about, half of it, and the other half, they're like, oh no, we hadn't thought about that. And that really will help us propel our business forward. So that's one of my most fun parts about my responsibilities, working with both prospects and customers to kind of create that roadmap together on how they can drive growth, how they can drive retention, how they can build really, really great moats around their company. Really
interesting. So Chris, because you were saying just now about, you were talking about the interesting work you're doing and how you're studying your customers and really, really trying to understand the customers and what motivates them and really thinking about what's going on in their lives and so on. And as Josh just said, LendingTree's been going for a while, but it's sort of kind of born digital company doing a lot of great stuff. What led you to working with Blueshift? When did you get to the point where you said, we need help here and we need specific help from Blueshift? How did you sort of get to that point of starting to work with Blueshift?
Yeah, so we had some legacy systems that were in place that were very rigid, very table-based. Sorry, I don't want to get too technical on this, but didn't allow us to flexibly respond to customers and personalize the experiences, primarily through email at the time, that we really wanted to be able to personalize. And so what we were looking for was a partner who could, be faster, help us respond more quickly to things that customers were saying and doing. They could bring us that next level of personalization, and they could let us, make consistent messages and creative across the different marketing channels that we were using at the time. So that's what we were looking for, and that's really what we found in Blueshift.
So that led you to Blueshift. So I mean, we can be a bit geeky on this video. It's good to talk about some of the detail. I mean, there's a lot of companies that talk about doing personalization, and actually sometimes it's important to understand, okay, what does that really mean? So for LendingTree, what exactly is Blueshift doing with that personalization? So Josh, can you tell us a little bit more about how you're helping LendingTree personalize? Because it's super easy to say, hey, we personalize. But what?
Personalization's the greatest buzzword in the last 20 years. I think everyone talks about personalization. If you go to a conference, you could probably get drunk pretty quickly if you're doing a game around the term personalization. But at the end of the day, what personalization really means is being relevant to your customer. And relevance takes a few forms. Relevance is, what are you talking about? It's content. Are you being relevant to the customer with the content you're providing? But it takes other forms. Are you being relevant in the time you're talking to the customer? So you could have the greatest content that's the most relevant, but if you miss the time that they're interested in actually consuming your content and really engaging in your content, then you kind of missed it, right? And that's one example I think Chris can talk to as well, which is, at LendingTree, they ran a test. At Blueshift, we have one of our AI offerings. It's called Engage Time Optimization. And what it simply does is it looks at all of your customers, how they're engaging with your different pieces of marketing, collateral, and website traffic and all that kind of stuff. And then we run an AI against it and come up with hours that each customer individually are most likely to engage with your brand. And it's not just like an open rate, it's actually engagement, right? So it takes open rates, takes click-through rates, takes a bunch of other signals in, and it says, okay, these are the hours that Chris or Ben or whoever's most likely engage, localized to that person's time zone. And so I remember at LendingTree a couple of years ago, they ran a test to say, hey, should we run Engage Time Optimization with one of our triggered sends? So this is a triggered send. Chris can talk more about the exact details of which triggered send, but it was a triggered send I think based off of the credit profile the customer has. And I think, and Chris can keep me honest here, I think historically they just ran it at like the time the person signed up. And so like someone signed up at midnight, like you're just going to get it at midnight every time. And if you sign up at 7 a.m, you get it at 7 a.m. every time, right? Every week. And we said, well, what if you think about engaged time optimization? Would that help? And maybe Chris can fill in some of the details, but I know it was really impactful for them, just changing. And honestly, from a operational standpoint, checking a checkbox. I mean, it's that simple in the system, but it's obviously the results are what matters. So Chris, do you want to fill in some of those details? Do you remember what I'm referring to?
Yeah. Engaged, sending at the right time, especially in finance, is important, because if people start engaging with lenders too early in the morning, there's a lot of regulation in the United States around when lenders are even allowed to have conversations with customers. It has to be between business hours. So getting the time right is actually a kind of a challenging problem that we have in this space with our customers. And yeah, to Josh's point, like understanding in a lot more depth, like when a customer is most likely to engage, while taking into account the regulations that we're working with and have to stay between those guidelines, has been really important. And it's driven a lot of, like Josh mentioned, not just open rates and click rates, but a lot of extra engagement with our brand and a lot of extra, help for customers, getting them further through the financing funnel that they're in the process of going through. So yeah, that's one of many tools that has helped with personalizing our experiences and getting customers the outcomes that they really want, getting more customers those outcomes they want.
And Chris, presumably you're tailoring a lot of things, not just obviously the time of day that you
That's
send
right.
the messages, presumably the day of week, but presumably you're also tailoring the content of the messages,
Yes.
maybe the style in which the messages are
Yes.
written. Are you also tailoring the products that you're offering to people? Are you changing the product offer?
Can
you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, great question. So it's one we're really excited about and passionate about, and kind of on this continuous improvement journey to do better and better at. So we have about 15 different actual loan products or investment products or savings account financial products that customers can choose at LendingTree. We've also got a lot of different type of educational content that customers can engage with. So for us, knowing, is someone at the point where they're ready to get a loan, sign up for a new financial account like a savings account or investment account, is kind of where we start our thinking with customers. And if we know that they are in, a place in their life where they're probably in need of that next loan, of that next financial account, then that helps us tremendously, because most of our customer base at any given point in time is not in that place where they need a loan. So for the 90% of people who don't need a loan right now, knowing that they don't need that loan, so we can engage them through education, through tips, through preparing them to get to that next loan, is a huge deal. And it keeps that 90% of our customer base engaged in a way that they wouldn't be if we were just continuously sending them prompts to go get their next loan. So that's a big one. And then for those customers who do need a loan right now, or do need a financial account right now, knowing which one they need out of those approximately 15 products that we have available is also really helpful. Because if somebody really is more in need of an auto loan because they can save a lot of money on their auto loan and they don't know that, it's better to help them with that product than to try to get them to open a new credit card, for example. And so being really smart and helpful to customers about which product we're recommending to them when they do have an opportunity to get a loan is kind of the second layer of the personalization that we've gone through with Blueshift in recommending these products. And then we've also got predictive and personalized content. So not just sending the right type of email, for example, to customers for the right product and the right loan, but also messaging that and communicating that in different ways depending on who the customer is and what we know about the customer.
You just mentioned sort of predictive content, and Josh, you were talking earlier about artificial intelligence. Can you tell us a little bit, maybe Josh, about how does that work? How are you using artificial intelligence in the platform? What types of artificial intelligence are you using? What's the role of it? How does that work?
We use 4 different types of AI to help with, to help identify who, what, when, and where. And so the who is propensity models, just to understand, what's the likelihood or probability of someone achieving this event in the future based on historical data. And so you can build those models directly in the platform. You can work with our AI team to help customize those models. You can benchmark the models and say, hey, how many people actually did achieve the event or events that we were projecting. And so that helps with what Chris was mentioning, like what product are people interested in, right? It helps you understand that. And then there's a layer deeper of like, okay, well, now they're interested in credit cards. Well, what credit card? And that's predictive content. And we use collaborative filtering. We use a bunch of different signals to understand, hey, load up your catalog, load up your offers, load up all the information you have about your customers. And we're going to look at what people are clicking on, what people are viewing, what people are doing, what that individual is doing. And there are AI models on that to predict what kind of content they're most likely to consume next. So is that next best offer concept is really important. And that applies to tons of different industries, but finance, it applies really well, especially in that educational side that Chris talked about. And then the when we talked about earlier is the engage time optimization, understanding when's the right time to talk to somebody. And then the where is channel affinity. So we look at all the channels that we have feedback loops for, so opens and clicks and things like that. And we say, hey, Chris is 90% likely to engage on email and only 20% likely to engage on SMS. Well, now as a marketer, you can make that decision in real time and say, why in the world would I send Chris an SMS message, right? He's only 10% likely to do that, but he's 90% likely to engage on email or 90% likely to click on something on the website or whatever. And we can do those channel scores, and then you can connect all of them in a journey, right? So that's where it becomes really magical, right? So you have all this data, you have all these data points, but then you can actually activate against them and execute against them and not have to just port them over into a different system. And that's where we see a lot of our customers having a ton of both benefit from engagement increases, but also benefit from time savement. Hours saved is enormous, where people will say, literally, we've saved 50 hours a week, doing this because it's one single way of talking to our customers, connecting with our customers, all the data is there that we can act on. So those are the different parts of AI and how it's accessible to brands like LendingTree and others.
So you were talking earlier about the sort of the first party data and so on, and I dare say things, we're in a better place at LendingTree than at some other companies you've seen, Josh. But how big an issue is that? Getting just sorting out your data, getting your underlying data sets into a state where you can actually act on and use them. I'm not sure which one of you wants to sort of take that.
Yeah, I can talk about it from a LendingTree perspective. It is another one of those just ongoing things as we acquire companies, as we start collecting new data, first-party data about our customers in different places, different touch points around the LendingTree experience. Our data sets are continuously changing and growing and needing to be combined in new and different ways. And we have, several things that we're kind of like customers give us permission to track and see about them. And so it's a process where I say we have made a ton of progress over the last couple of years in making our first party data usable and actionable and helping us learn about our customers from our first party data. But it's certainly not something that we can put to bed and say we've mastered and we don't need to worry about anymore. So it's something we invest a lot of thought and time into to make sure we're getting continuously better, because we know that the quality of our first party data is always going to be our limiting factor. We've got ways of activating the data, we've got ways of modeling on the data, but all of those things are only as good as the data we have. And as long as there's an opportunity to make that data better, it's something that we invest in and know is critical for our success.
Yeah, and I'll just add, the way I look at it and the way I see the market evolving is customers, when companies ask customers for data, right? Hey, sign up, come join our loyalty program, come fill out our lead form, all this kind of stuff. Customers are willing to provide that data as long as there's a reflection in the value they're getting, right? And so when companies ask for first-party data and they don't reflect a personalized experience, customers are the validation or the expectations are a little bit violated, right? And that's where you start losing engagement, because it's quite frustrating for a customer to go in and spend time, provide you rich data in the hopes that you can provide some sort of value. And then the next time you talk to them, it's like you're reintroducing yourself all over again. And you're asking for the same data all over again. And each channel is operating in silos. And I think that's generally where a lot of the companies are today. There's a lot of channel data, but it's not customer data. And it might be a customer on a channel. And so all the channels kind of operate in these islands of engagement, but they don't operate in a cohesive view. And a customer doesn't think about a brand as I'm talking to this department, now I'm talking to this department. They think about I'm talking to the brand. And anytime I interact with the brand on any medium, I want them to remember what I just did and what should be interesting to me. And so some brands like LendingTree and others are very good in getting and continue to evolve there, but other brands are so far behind that they're just struggling. And I think they're starting to realize if we don't understand and utilize our first party data in a way that we can make this cohesive, relevant experience for our customers everywhere they talk to us, then we're going to start losing out to companies that are doing that, right? Because at the end of the day, companies and brands and customers want to be felt and treated like they matter, and they're okay with it being automated. They're okay with it being done by computers and robots and things like that, but it has to feel personalized and real. And so many companies still struggle with that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Customers want to be recognized and treated as individuals, they don't want a one-size-fits-all offer. I want to go in another slightly different direction because obviously we're talking about lending. Lending can be fantastic. It enables us to finance things, to buy things and so on. But occasionally, people borrow money that they can't afford to pay back and so on. And when we come to AI and you're using advanced personalization here, there's a danger that you offer money to people who actually can't afford to pay it back. How do you manage that? I guess that one's for you, Chris, but
yeah.
How do you manage that and stay on the right side of doing what's best for customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's another one of those things that I think hopefully we'll continuously get better and better at doing. It's one of the things I like about my role now is, we are basically tasked as a customer experience team with being empathetic with our customers, of understanding what they actually are trying to accomplish. So sometimes, people go to take out new debt to pay off something that they, can't afford in the short term. And that can be a slippery slope that gets customers in trouble. Where we can come in is saying, okay, like your goal when you came to us was not to get a new credit card. Your goal was to better manage your monthly expenses. And we've got a lot of other tools that can help you do that. Maybe you're paying too much for your mortgage right now. Refinancing your mortgage will save you $200 a month, and then you won't need to get that new credit card to pay off your kids' school expenses this month or to help pay your rent. We hear a lot of people who have very immediate problems that can be solved through just better managing the current debt they have. Some people have a lot of credit card debt already and they're struggling to pay that off. And we have products that will lower the interest on their credit card debt when they consolidate. So what we're trying to do is not necessarily like guide customers towards getting their next loan, but really to understand what those customers are trying to accomplish, how they want their lives to be different when they come to LendingTree, and then offer our suite of solutions to help them best accomplish that. And, it's something that better data, better understanding customers, better personalizing our experiences and building credibility, like Josh just mentioned. I mean, customers tell us all the time that the brands they're staying engaged with are the ones that seem most relevant, that seem most personalized, and give them advice that they can trust. So our goal is to be that trusted advisor where you may come to us thinking you need a credit card. We gather some information about the customer and say, you don't really need a new credit card. And, potentially that could be a bad thing long-term for you if you got a new credit card. But here's a way that you can accomplish your goals and be, pay off your monthly debts or pay off your existing credit card more quickly. And so our goal really just always comes back to when a customer comes to us, understand what not their specific product goal is, but what is their actual goal they're trying to accomplish, and then help them accomplish that goal.
That's really, really good to hear. I've got one last question for you, Josh. There's been a number of new or relatively new regulations around privacy and consumer data and so on, like the California Consumer Privacy Act or Europe's GDPR regulation. Do you see those as obstacles to marketers growing their business, or do you see them as sort of necessary protections that Blueshift just manages around? And are they an issue, or not really?
It's interesting. I almost see two paths that look like they're on a collision course, but can actually coincide together. And one is privacy, right? Legislation. And it's not just legislation, right? It's also tech companies introducing new privacy controls. Like iOS 15 just got released, a few weeks ago, and that has all these privacies on. You can hide your email address. You can't, open emails can't be tracked anymore, and use like fake email addresses or whatever. And so you're truly obfuscating your right, who you are to companies. And Google's getting rid of third-party cookies, Google Chrome, and next year, and stuff like that. And so I think there's two areas that privacy is definitely coming up, right, as a big thing that companies need to be aware of. But then there's also this resurging, desire from customers for relevance and convenience. They want to work with brands that are extremely relevant to them and talk to them like a one-to-one person and make the process of accomplishing whatever they want to do very, very easy on wherever they want to do it. And so those two look like they're completely contradictory, right? Like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to personalize and be convenient if I don't know who the customer is, right? But they're not. They can coexist, but it takes the right technology to do it, right? You need a technology that can manage the consent. And it's more than just emails, right? Where canned spam's been around for decades, and that was like channel level consent was managed that way. But now it's customer level consent. It's across tracking you. It's across, your email address, forgetting you, all these different things that legislation and tech companies are doing. But then on the same side from companies, it's, well, let's create an experience so people don't want to be forgotten. They don't want us to remove their data. They want us to have their real email address because we're providing great value to them. They don't want to be forgotten. And so I think it's more of an opportunity for brands to step up and say, how do we provide a really good experience? A really relevant experience, a really frictionless, convenient experience for customers so they don't want to be forgotten. And I use like Amazon as an example because everyone has an Amazon account pretty much in the world. If Amazon suddenly forgot who I was, it would make my life really hard. I put a lot of things on my wish list, things with my kids and my wife and stuff like that. It would make my life really hard. I don't want them to forget who I am. In fact, I want them to make it easier for me. Secure, private, yes, but very convenient and simple. And I think a lot of brands have an opportunity to do that. And the ones that will start to grow extremely fast. And the ones that don't, they're going to be hit harder, right? And they're not going to be able to really drive customer value long term.
Excellent. I really like the way you're thinking about that. So thank you for sharing it with us all. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the show. Both of you have got super interesting jobs, but I imagine maybe that wasn't always the case. So we want to wrap up by asking you one last question each, which you can answer however you like, related to fintech or not, about what advice would you give to your younger selves? So, to people who are watching this, keen to get into fintech or whatever, what advice, looking back on your career, would you give your younger self? I don't know if we should pick on one of you or whether one of you wants to volunteer to go first.
Josh, you want to go for it first?
Sure, yeah. So I think advice for my younger self, that's a good question. I would say probably challenge the status quo more. I think when you're very young, you have a tendency to follow the path that's already blazed. And that there's some safety in that, and that's why a lot of people kind of gravitate towards that. But I think if I was referring back to my younger self, I would say, I'll try the alternative path. Be aware of the path that's been blazed, but challenge it and say, well, what else can we do? Can we do more? Because I think so often, when you're younger, you have really great fresh ideas, but those sometimes get a little bit muted because they don't conform to maybe how things have always been done. And so, as you're starting either your career in fintech or your career in any part, be aware of what's always been done, but have a good hypothesis of, well, can we make it better, right? Because I think that's when you're starting to really influence and infect change, both in your career as well as in whatever company you're working for.
Love it. Chris?
Yeah, Josh, I love that advice. I think it is definitely very applicable in fintech, especially right now, is I think, in the beginning of just a massive period of disruption in finance. And I think anybody who's young out there and has ideas and has hypotheses for how to approach this period that we're just starting in, just know your ideas are as valid as anybody else. Peek behind the curtain here. A lot of us guys who've been in this for a while, we don't have the answers. We don't know exactly what's coming. We don't know how to challenge things and approach things like crypto very well. So young people's ideas, just getting started in this industry, you have an idea that it seems different than what's going on right now. It's not because we're right and you're wrong. It's probably because you're right and we're wrong. So I think that's great advice Josh had. The other thing I would say, just generally, even outside of fintech, that I wish I had learned a little bit earlier on is just stay focused on what you want to accomplish. Don't get bogged down with problems. Making change, seeing things through in a period of change is difficult. And there's going to be lots of reasons not to try to make those changes that you want, lots of opportunities to give up on making those changes. So stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish and just ignore the distractions. And that's advice I think about. Somebody gave me a couple years ago. And it sounds simple, but after I heard it, I started noticing just how easy it is to get distracted by the problems instead of staying focused on the solution. So stay passionate and stay focused on the change that you want to enact, the change that you want to make happen.
Love it. Very wise from both of you. Okay, I have one last quick question for both of you. I'd love to hear what's next for Blueshift and what's next for LendingTree. Chris just said he doesn't know what's coming, so maybe we should start with you. Josh, what's next for Blueshift?
Well, actually, today is what's next. So we launched two big releases today in the Blueshift platform. One was our app hub that has over 90 app integrations across the entire customer experience stack, from channels like email and mobile to customer service and chat and other things like that. So now customers can go in and configure those channels themselves, add custom channels as well. And so that launched today. And then also we launched our omni-channel builder today, a reimagined kind of next generation builder. We've always kind of had a builder to some sorts, but this adds a lot new functionality and a lot more usability. So that also launched today. And really the goal is to help people truly do that personalized omni-channel engagement very, very easily. And so that launched today across the entire product and across the entire platform for all of our customers and all of our new prospects. So that's what's very new. And I think if you're peek around the corner a little bit, one of the things that we're constantly working on is how do we make it easier for companies to activate their first-party data? And that comes into how do we make AI more accessible? How do we make channel connections easier? And how do we make it easier for you to analyze that data as well?
Super exciting. Chris, what's next for LendingTree?
I have no idea. Just kidding. What's coming next, there'll be some news over the next couple of months on some pretty big new initiatives we're excited about. But directionally where we're going is just lots of great new loan shopping experiences that make finance easier for people, simplify and shorten the amount of time people have to spend thinking about finance, and save people even more money. So we've got some stuff we're really excited about that'll be announced in the next couple of months.
Fantastic. Okay, everybody, it's coming to the end of the show. It's been such a pleasure talking to you both, Josh and Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find out more about you and everything you're getting up to? Maybe Chris first. Where can people find out more about you and what you're up to? Yeah,
LendingTree has a pretty strong presence on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So we release a lot of information there and engage with our users there. So definitely would encourage everybody to check us out there.
And Josh?
Yeah, for Blueshift, of course, the Blueshift website has a trove of information, but we also are pretty active on LinkedIn. So that's where we post a lot of our information, engage with a lot of our customers there as well. So either way is a great place to engage with us and learn about what we're up to.
Thank you both so much. Right, that's all we have time for this week. So please make sure you follow 11FS on LinkedIn and Twitter so that you never miss an episode. And go visit the 11FS YouTube channel where you can catch up on all the previous episodes as well as this one. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you and goodbye.